Hi, welcome to AllCBTs. My name is David, and today we'll be looking at JUPEB Literature in English questions. These questions are curated to help you prepare maximally for Literature in English JUPEB exam and to pass it. Now let's get into it. Now, under the JUPEB English Literature in English exam, you have these 5 categories. You have drama questions, you have prose fiction, you also have poetry questions, and you have literary appreciation or literary devices. 4 categories actually. So I've taken for you 3 of the top most likely questions for each of these categories so that as soon as you study them and master them, you would be able to approach any of such questions in the literature and English exam and do well. I've also included the year that the exam was taken from. That's 2024, right before the question, so that you can make reference in your past question pack. Now, if you are yet to be subscribed to the channel, I think it's about time you do so that once we upload for all the other subjects and even an update to these particular questions, you will be updated and then you can come and watch. So let's begin with the drama section. Like I said, I have 3 top questions for the drama section, but I'm only going to be explaining one so that I can go deep in detail. Now let's look at one of the question I'll be explaining, which is this one. Explain how Lysistrata uses gender reversal to critique patriarchal authority. Now, Lysistrata is a drama novel, and she is the main character in that drama. If you have not read that novel, you probably will not understand deeply what I'm about to explain. So you might need to read it or get a summary of the novel. But Lysistrata, a female character, she criticized patriarchal authority, that's the authority of men or the authority of the male gender. Wherever you see patriarchal, it stands for men, father figures, male gender. She used gender reversal, which we're going to be looking at in detail, to critique and, in fact, change in a subtle way the authority of men in that novel. Now let's look at the answers. All right. Now, Aristophanes' Lysistrata is a classical Greek comedy. The writer of the novel is Aristophanes. Now, this is a classical Greek comedy first performed in 411 BCE during the Peloponnesian War. Okay, I'm giving you this introduction, maybe having in mind that probably you've not read it or to prepare you for what I'm to explain. Now, the play is renowned for its bold use of gender reversal, which is what? Simply, women taking control of political and domestic spheres traditionally dominated by men. So, there are some actions or some roles that in a society are performed by men are seen to be a man thing. Okay? But in the novel, Lysistrata, those roles were reversed, and it was the females who were taking over those roles. Now, to deliver a sharp critique of patriarchal authority and warmongering in Athens and Sparta, these are places in Rome. Now let's look at context of the play. Ancient Greek society was patriarchal, was ruled and dominated by men. Men dominated policy and war, while women were confined to domestic duties. It's almost about in every place. But as at that time, it was strongly, even when you read the scriptures, which was mostly written in Greek and Hebrew, you see that, I'm talking about the Holy Bible, you see that most of the activities there, you don't really hear the mention of women, especially in the New Testament. You hear the mention of men and men because that was the times that they were in. Women were silent. Okay, they majorly managed home affairs, kitchen affairs, and children. They had no say in politics, in war, and in rule. Okay, Now, the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta had dragged on for years, okay, causing suffering and social unrest. Aristophanes, through Homer, this is the writer, remember, sought to expose the futility of war and the incompetence of male leadership. So that drama novel, okay, Lysistrata, was subtly made in a way that it carried humor and comedy, whilst pointing out that the patriarchal authority, that's authority of men, is not the supreme authority, and that sometimes it's not always the way to go, which we'll see more in detail. Now let's see gender reversal as a dramatic device. From the novel, one of the things we can deduce or point out from the novel: one, women assume political roles. Lysistrata conveys women from rival city-states, which was from Athens and Sparta. Because now, up until this moment, let me explain. The war had lingered between these two cities, Athens and Sparta, for a long time. The men had refused to lay down hands or come to any sort of peacekeeping. People were dying, women were losing their husbands. And so the women were tired. These were women who had no say in war. But their houses were being destroyed, their children were being killed, and their husbands were dying. So women from these two great cities, two great kingdoms, came together, led by Lysistrata, an heroic woman, according to the novel, okay, the drama novel. So they came together and persuaded them to take control of political decisions. She persuaded other women to take control. It was hard, like it's never been done before. We are supposed to be homekeepers and silent in the community and be in the kitchen. You are persuading us to do the unthinkable. But she had a subtle way to go about it. This is radical. Women seized the Acropolis, where the state treasury is kept, depriving men of war funds. So they started. The first thing they did was to seize the Acropolis, where the money, okay, that sponsored the war or caused the war to linger. They seized it and deprived men of access to war funds. Okay, moving forward. Two, the second thing they did, which was really notable, was sex strike. Traditionally, women were seen as sexually submissive to men. Yes, traditionally, even until now, women are seen as sexually submissive. They should be submissive to men. That's what the society say or sees. Even religion teaches such. Most religions. Yeah, they wield sexual power. So because women were sexually submissive to men, especially during those times, women had no say over their body when it comes to sexual encounters. Okay, so the man can come anytime and say, "It's time, madam," and she's like, "Okay, yes, my lord," you get it. So then they used sex as their power. They wield sexual power, denying intimacy to force peace negotiations. So they said to the men, to their husbands, "We are not going to give you sex," including the prostitutes in the hotels. They stopped selling their bodies for sex. Sex was nowhere to be found in the streets, in the brothels, in the hotels, nowhere. Nobody was going to give sex to their husband because they had come to that conclusion, led by, remember, Lysistrata. In order to force these our husbands from both kingdoms to come to an agreement, we would deprive them of sex. All right, now let's continue. This reversal humiliates the men who are shown as enslaved to desires, still the same today, undermining their supposed superiority. So the men who probably was psychological or bodily stressed and wanted to, have sex in a way to release some of this pent up stress, could not have access home or away. So It was embarrassing to the men at that time. All right, point 3. Men portrayed in the novel as irrational warmongers. Now, male characters are caricatured as stubborn and foolish, prioritizing war over family and peace, according to the novel, which is kind of the same today. Ego always get in the way. It's not like men don't know that, oh, we shouldn't be fighting these wars, it's meaningless. But he's got to bow for me. That country has to bow for our country. We shouldn't be seen as the weak one or the weaker ones. This is what has kept, or what is keeping most war lingering. People dying, infrastructure is being destroyed. So it was also in the novel. So women emerged as the rational peacekeeper, a direct inversion of societal expectation. So from the play now, women became the peacekeeper. The women who are supposed to be the weaker ones and submissive now were the ones that were saving the day through their subtle devices, device of use, the use of sex, and also restraining access to state funds. Moving forward. Now let's not forget the question is the critique of patriarchal authority. How did she critique patriarchal authority, which we are now? The first point, war and masculinity. Aristophanes link war to toxic masculinity and ego-driven politics. Like I said, ego is what keeps war lingering. Point 2, women as voices of reason. By empowering women, the play questions why men monopolize power if women can resolve conflict more efficiently. Now, what's the conclusion to that question? Through gender reversal, Aristophanes, the author, dismantles patriarchal assumptions, presenting women not as passive figures, but as catalysts for peace and social stability. The play's enduring message is that wisdom and leadership are not determined by gender, but by virtue and reason. How's true? So true. Because in our society today, we must, when you look at that, when you read the novel and you understand the concept I've just explained, you see that it still relates to our society today. Women are left out of all of those decisions, including war decisions in nations. Whereas they could have a subtle way. If you go read stories, even in holy books like in the Bible, you will see that several wars in the holy books, especially Holy Bible, were won by the wisdom of women. Very subtle wisdom. So the play, Aristophanes, the author of the play, seek to explain and establish that women should not be kept out from some of these policies, that wars are not won by strength all the time, especially when egos are involved. You understand? So that was that for the first point. So for drama, so then you have questions as this also that you're likely to see. Discuss, this one was taken from 2023. Discuss the role of the chorus in Eliot's murder in the cathedral. So the author is Eliot, and the drama's title is Murder in the Cathedral, and its thematic significance. You can read the book and have understanding to answer this question. And then the third one, contrast the Lysistrata structure with classical tragedy rather. How does comedy alter dramatic form? So these are likely questions, most likely questions, especially this Lysistrata question, novel. It will often come out. If you miss it in JUPEB, you will meet it probably in a GMB or some other A-level exam. So when you maximize or master answering these kinds of questions here, you can ace it in any exam you come across. Now, if you want to get this particular note by which or with which I'm teaching, you can request in the comment section. I'll be happy to send it to you so that you can also read for yourself and understand better. Now we go to the second major category in JUPEB Literature in English exam, which is prose fiction. And I have one of the questions here that I will be explaining. I told you that I have 3 questions for each category, but I will explain just one. And the one I'll be explaining in this particular category is compare narrative voice in Things Fall Apart. It's an African novel, Things Fall Apart, by AllCBTs, and Jane Hayes' European novel, okay, since 2011. This question has been recurrent since 2011, meaning that almost in all JUPEB exams you see this question. So you better master it, understand it, and master it, because you likely meet it. Now let's go into the answer, the understanding of it. Now, narrative voice is the perspective through which a story is told. It shapes readers' understanding of events, themes, and character. True, you want to explain how things unfold, you want to tell a story, you use narration. Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, written in 1958, and Charlotte Bronte's Jane Hayes' 1847, the title of the novel is Jane Hayes, present contrasting narrative techniques rooted in their cultural and historical context. Meaning to say that the African oral tradition versus European personal memoir style. So Chinua Achebe, obviously a Nigerian man, an Igbo man, wrote his own Things Fall Apart in a traditional, cultural, in-depth style, while Bronte wrote our own prose style in the European memoir kind of style. Now let's look into it in detail. What are the first? Let's take Things Fall Apart first. What can we deduce from the narrative voice of Chinua Achebe? Number one, it was in the third person omniscient narrator. So this is a third person, like an overseer, someone that is, like someone that is seeing things from the sky. Okay, the story is told by an all-knowing voice. For example, if you watch, some of you watch BB Naija, right? So you see that voice that speaks in the house, which nobody knows. Yes, and then it's called the all-seeing eye, right? So that is the kind of voice that wrote this story. That voice, if he's asked to give account of whatever happened in the house, he definitely knows what to say. And he's going to be speaking as a third person on the account of anything that happened in that BB Naija's house. The same thing here. So the story is told by an all-knowing voice, giving readers insight into multiple characters in the story, just like multiple characters in the BB Naija's, adventure, or whatever I would call it, and Igbo culture. Now let's see another point. The narrator balances Okonkwo's personal struggle, which is one of the main characters there, or the major character, with the collective experiences of Mafia society. Second point, oral tradition and cultural context. Deep in Chinua Achebe Things Fall Apart. Incorporates proverbs, a lot of proverbs, cultural proverbs, folktales, communal idioms. Okay, next, it reflects African communal storytelling. Yes, so these are, as in, the Things Fall Apart prose goes deep into African's roots. It's local. It flourishes on the cultural Igbo heritage. And then, number three, objective yet sympathetic. It presents Igbo custom without overt judgment, but subtly critiques colonial intrusion and internal flaws. Readers understand Okonkwo's inner conflict and societal downfall. So hope you understand now Chinua Achebe's angle of the cultural writing for the Things Fall Apart. Now let's look at Jane Hayes' angle of the European style, a memoir style of the prose. Now, what's our own style? Now, Chinua Achebe's first point, I said third person. For Jane Eyre's, Bronte's, it's the first person. Okay, that means the character was the one penning down, like a memoir. You know what a memoir is? When you make records of an event, a personal event, you recount in a diary. So Jane, who is this character, the major character, narrates her own life, writing it down in like a kind of in a diary, a biography of herself. Okay, whereas Chinua Achebe's was an unseen eye, a third person, narrating the events that happened during a space of time. Can you see the contrast now? So Jane narrates her life from childhood to adulthood, a Baudine's Roman structure. The tone of the prose is subjective and emotional. Readers experience events directly through a personal lens, unlike Things Fall Apart, where we are being told and we experience it from the eye of the all-seeing eye, the third person. In this particular context, we are working with Jane as she leads us into the events of our lives. This one is personal. Okay, confessional and introspective tone, which is the tone of the novel. The narration reveals Jane's moral and spiritual struggle, love versus duty, passion versus principle. It allows psychological depth. Readers sympathize with her resilience and quest for equality. So, because she's writing, she's documenting a memoir, it's almost like she's writing us an informal letter. That connection, that bond is there. Okay, as we walk with her through her struggle. Now, next point, events are filtered through Jane's perception. Other characters' inner thoughts remain unknown. Very true. We don't know all the other actors. We don't know if Jane's record or Jane's writing of them, if it's indeed true, if it's accurate as she has stated in her memoir, because we are only hearing from our own side. We are not hearing from the other side. However, the difference between this and Chinua Achebe's is that Chinua Achebe is writing on behalf of every character in the story. You see the contrasting difference. Alright, so this creates intimacy but also bias. Jane's style is biased because she's giving us the judgment from her own angle. We can't see all the characters. We can't speak to them. We can't even hear their own side. Good. Now let's compare now. We have to look at each individually. Now let's bring both styles together and compare. And the first point we're going to look at is the perspective. Achebe uses third person, like I have explained. Omniscience. Omniscience means all-seeing, all-knowing, offering a panoramic view of culture and multiple viewpoints. But Bronte uses first person, creating personal intimacy and emotional immediacy. So Bronte brings us into the story through his own eye, through his own writing, connecting us, bringing that personal intimacy. A total contrast to Achebe's style. 2. Cultural style. Achebe draws on African oral tradition. He uses a lot of proverbs, folk tales, the African style of living to explain, okay, and to bring about the events. But Bronte reflects European, Victorian individualism and Christian morality. Next, Achebe aims to preserve and explain Igbo life while critiquing colonialism. But Bronte explores personal growth, feminism, and moral integrity. So what's our conclusion now from this? The narrative voice in Things Fall Apart celebrates communal African heritage and offer cultural exposition, while Jane's Eyre privileges personal introspection and emotional truth. Together, they highlight how narrative perspective reflects not only authorial style, but also the cultural and historical realities of African and European literature. All right, beautiful. So, and then I have other questions for you, likely questions for the JUPEB Literature English. But I said I'll take just one. So for this category, you can also see this question. Explain how setting in Mind Boy is also a prose novel. Mind Boy reflects social realism and colonial experience. And then I have another one. Define characteristic feature of African prose fiction and illustrate with text samples. And then another one, discuss character development and thematic tension in a Baldwin's roman. So we move to the next one, the next category. I told you we have 4 categories. And then this is the 3rd category, poetry. Analyze, I'll take the first one, right? Is it the first one? Okay, yeah. I'll take the first one. Analyze tone, imagery, and symbolism in Senghor's poem, Black Woman. Okay, let's take all the points first. 6. Explain the cultural significance of negritude movement as reviewed in African poetry. Differentiate between lyrics with ode, sonnets, and ballad with examples from syllabus. Is there another one? Okay, so that's it. Let's go back to that category now. So you have some likely questions. Now, when I give you these likely questions, what I'm helping you to do is really understand the style by which JUPEB sets these questions. Then, as I explain some of this, it's to help you to see how to approach those kind of questions as you will meet them in the literature English text. So you can copy out these questions and do a better in-depth study. Ours is just to give you an angle or a preamble to the setup. Yours is to do a better study to enrich what you've already gathered. Now, if you're yet to be subscribed to the channel, you should do so now so that you can get updates to this question. Okay, let's go to the last category now. Practical realism, right? Yes, literary appreciation or literary devices. Here are some questions. Close read an unseen prose extract. Analyze the tone, the diction, and the sentence structure. What is an unseen prose? I will come back to that. Then critique an unseen poem. Identify imagery, figurative language, tone, and form. Number 10. Okay, now what's an unseen prose? What's an unseen poem? Now, an unseen prose or poem is a sudden prose or poem that you encountered in the exam. You have not rehearsed it. You've not seen it in the past questions. What do I mean by that? Now, I'm sure you must have studied a lot, or you would study a lot of past questions, prose or poem, and question and answer, preparing yourself for your literature and English exam. But in an unseen poem or unseen prose, the examiner gives you the prose or the question. You are aware of the prose or the poem that day when you are writing the exam. In other words, you have not seen it before in any past question. You are not notified that you are going to explain this particular prose or poem. You met it just there. That was the first time you are seeing it in that exam. So that's what it's meant by unseen prose or unseen poem. And why do examiners give unseen poem or unseen prose? They give it to test your intelligence in the literature in English exam. Because, of course, you could have rehearsed and store memory. If you had seen, for example, this kind of an example now, silent fields. If they've told you, okay, you'll be tested on silent fields, then you've studied it, you've understood it. In fact, you will write it out word for word. You know all the angles through which you can set the question. But it's called unseen poem because you were not told You are not given. You just came to the exam and saw that this is what you are writing. And then you still have to explain or answer all the questions that is presented to you. So I've given you an example. This will not be in your exam, but you will have something because it's an unseen poem. It will just be there, unseen poem. But I have now given you an example of such unseen poem that you can find in your exam. And this unseen poem is called Silent Fields. So let's look at it briefly. This is the last question I'll take, and then we shut this down. So unseen poem, Silent Fields. The fields once sang with children's feet, now silent under the weight of weeds. Rusting swings, creaks in the wind, echoes of laughter lost to dust. The sky once painted in festival hues, hangs grays with the smoke of forgotten fires. Okay? Yet, in a stubborn corner, a lone flower blooms defiantly, a whisper of tomorrow. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Now, even without explaining, you can tell that the poem actually calm down. You can tell that the poem actually shows a time that has gone and a time that is coming. It shows a current state of disappointment, a current state of sadness, sorrow. It says the field that once sang with children's feet is now silent under the weight of weeds. Rustling swings creak in the wind, echoes of laughter now lost to dust. So a place that was thriving before has now become gloomy, right? So, but then it still paints a future that, yes, there is a tomorrow, right? It says the sky once painted in festival hues now hangs grey, smoke of forgotten fires. Yet, in a stubborn corner, a lone flower blooms defiantly, whispering tomorrow. Now let's see the little explanation I have for you. This poem, Silent Fields, so you might be told, let's go back to the question first. All right, so this is the question again. Close read an unseen prose extract. I've given you an example of an unseen prose, an extract. Now, what are we supposed to do with that prose? Analyze the tone. 1, the tone, the diction, and 3, the sentence structure. Now, let's go to the explanation so that you see how I was able to analyze it. This is the extract. Now, this is the poem. I want to analyze it now. So this poem, Silent Field, explores loss, like I explained before, loss and hope through vivid rural imagery. It contrasts the vibrant past with the desolation of the present and ends with a fragile yet defiant symbol of renewal or of tomorrow. It talks about the past that blows on, the past that was good, that was lively. It talks about today that the character was facing, which was something close to death, and then ends with a tomorrow, a future that looks blooming. Okay, now let's go to some of the points we can find from there. One, visual imagery. We use words that are visually imaginative, that brings a kind of picture to us, like rustling swings, gray sky, weight of weeds. It creates image in our minds. While lone flower at the end of the poem gives us a contrast to these previous phrases that has been used. There's a contrast. Then it gives us an oral imagery, creak in the wind, echoes of laughter. It evokes haunting sounds, emphasizing absence and memory. Yes. Then these images allow readers to see and hear the contrast between past joy and present emptiness, deepening emotional impact. So the writer's use of these words is to connect us, okay, to a kind of picture and that has been painted for us, so that we can see the past in the eye of the reader, or in the eye of the character, we can see the present and understand the future. We have some figurative language in the poem. This is how you write it during your writing your explanation. You have some figurative language in the poem. You have personification. For example, fields once sang. Fields, land, a piece of real estate does not sing. So wherever you see it in the literal device that is singing or sang, that's personification, taking on the properties of a man. That's what personification is. The properties of a human, the attributes of a human being. So fields singing is taking on the attributes of a human being. So nature giving human abilities, suggesting harmony between people and land in the past. Okay, moving on. Metaphor. We also see metaphor in the poem. What's metaphor? Look at it. Whisper of tomorrow. Tomorrow does not whisper. It's a metaphoric device. Then you have symbolism. Lone flower. Lone flower symbolizes what? Renewal. Like a sprouting flower in the desert symbolizes that there is hope for tomorrow, right? Effect. Figurative devices transform the abandoned field into a metaphor for societal decline and potential rebirth. Let's see, do I have more for you? Yes. Tone. What is the overall tone? Melancholy. What's melancholy? Sad. Melancholy means sad. Okay. So the overall tone is melancholic, and then it now shifted to hope towards the end, where it says, by the corner there was a lone flower that was shooting up, which talks about a bright tomorrow. So from line 1 to line 6 was sad. This one is dying, that one is not working. But 7 to 8 now talks about a flower that signifies that tomorrow will be better. Now, words like silence, weeds, and forgotten fires convey sadness, while blooms introduce optimism. Good. All right, let's go to the last point there. 2 stanzas of 4 lines each, okay? No fixed rhyme. Yes, just natural speech and realism. Okay. So, I think with that, we've been able to do a very good justice to the literature in English exam for JUPEB. Now, please, like I said, you need to study this maximally and prepare yourself alongside other past questions you can find, other videos as these. You can also check our channels for videos connecting you to all the other subject combinations you offer for the JUPEB exam. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, the least you can do is to interact with this video by liking and sharing your thoughts with us, so that this suggests to YouTube algorithms that the video is good quality and they can push it to a larger audience. I'll see you in the next one. Hi, I'm sure you enjoyed the content you just watched. To see more episodes as that, preparing you for your oncoming exams, smash the subscribe button on this channel right now and visit the playlist that we've made for you, covering over 50 types of different exams, including JAMB, WAEC, Kakao, NEET, IELT, and the likes like that. Also, in every video you watch, we have the link to our apps where you can download on Google Play Store and Apple Play Store and practice hundreds of past questions for free.